just questioning those standards is something that I've started to do again and again. So I just see it with all kinds of people. Like we're measuring ourselves up against lines that we never really wanted. They were either given to us by our parents or social media or school or whatever. And this idea, people always feel like they're behind because there's this hustle culture and there's this, you got to move fast. And these ideas that keep getting perpetuated online are doing people some harm. People are feeling like a failure. They give up too easily. They don't understand that a lot of things take longer to build than you're being told on Instagram. Those I made $1 million in 30 days formulas are usually lies, or it's like the 1 in a million person who actually pulled it off. So I feel like I'm a bit of the countercultural message. So I use that when I work with founders as well as students that I work with, because I think questioning those lines and understanding what we're really trying to get at in the long run is something that people don't always stop and take the time to do.
Before we dive into today's episode, please hit that subscribe button. Your support helps us grow and inspire more people on their journeys. Thank you. Hello, Angela. Thank you for joining us today and welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So, Angela, for those who don't know you, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah. So my full name, Angela Marie D'Antonio. I am an executive coach and keynote speaker. I work mostly with neurodivergent founders, helping them to work with their strengths in order to help them build their businesses.
Mm-hmm. And before we discuss it in more detail, we just spoke about it briefly before the recording, but can you tell us a bit about your background, such as where you come from and maybe a bit more about yourself? Because I always find it very interesting that people from all around the world can connect. We are both in different locations, so maybe where we are from actually.
Yeah. So the Cliff Notes version, right now I live in La Grande, Oregon. So that is in the mountains of Eastern Oregon. So actually not the Oregon most people think of when they think of my state. I grew up on the other side of the country, though. I am from North Carolina, so a Southerner at heart. How much more of my background do you want?
Why did you actually move across the states?
Why did I? So my husband is a professor. He teaches cultural anthropology. And so when people come out of their professorial jobs, you usually have 1-year jobs from here to there. So the first few years we moved a lot. We actually lived a year in Dublin, Ireland. We lived a year on the coast of Maine, which both of which I really loved, a year in North Carolina. And then eventually he got a permanent position here at the university in Eastern Oregon.
And with this experience, what's the place that you've enjoyed the most, or is it one where you are currently now?
Oh, that's a hard. I really loved Ireland. I also really loved Maine. Whenever a job opens up back in Maine for my husband, I make him apply. So that probably tells you something. It was just on the coast. It was beautiful, very simple life. You could walk everywhere and you could eat seafood constantly, which I also enjoyed. So yeah, I really loved that. In Ireland, I actually at the time was working as a midwife. So that was a really interesting and kind of amazing experience as well. So all of them different in their own right, but fun.
Then, out of curiosity, is there another location where would you like to try live it?
Oh, we have long-term dreams of ending up in Europe. My husband is a huge fan of Spain, so that's pretty high on the list.
Beautiful weather.
Yes, yeah. And we have enough connections in Ireland. We've lived there a couple times, and so that's also kind of a potential. So maybe the long-term dream. My 2 kids are moving all over the world these days, so I imagine I'm going to go whatever keeps me close to them. And so my oldest right now is in Germany for the year, and then my youngest next year will be going to Kyrgyzstan for a year as well. So adventures.
I read on your website and I found it really cool that it's all around the world. Europe, there you are based in US, so at least it makes great experiences.
Yeah, we've raised some adventurers, so it's going to be hard to keep close to them, but I love that they're doing it.
You also reminded me when you mentioned, I think it was living in May because of the cuisine on a beach, that I read recently a post about your favorite food. And honestly, I didn't know what was it, so I had to Google it. And I've never tried it. So if I'm not mistaken, it's a blue crab, isn't it?
Yeah. So the Chesapeake Bay, like around Washington, D.C. area, has the very specific like blue crab, and it is my favorite food. I haven't had it in probably 13 years since I moved to the other side of the country, But still, I would, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I had to research it. I didn't know even it existed. And is it actually so delicious? Because I guess it is, but I cannot imagine.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I am a bit of a foodie, so everywhere I go, I make it a point of eating really good food, and but that is the one thing I keep returning to. It's still the best.
Well, it's definitely on my list now. And you also remind me of very cool title or another role that you've got, which is cheese associate, isn't it? And it also made me to research if it actually exists.
It
But
does.
it's pretty cool, it is.
Yeah, yeah, it is one of those weird kind of paths that I went down just for fun. Honestly, it's not, I never really thought I would be a
Yeah.
cheese, connoisseur, but I do love cheese. And so I did it for fun. The test for it was actually quite a bit harder than I expected
Oh,
it
was
to be.
it?
Yeah. So I almost didn't pass, which is even funnier. I was one of those straight A students in school. So my kids thought it was funny that I almost didn't pass my cheese exam. But, yeah, it does exist. It's actually comes out of Europe as well. It's not an American thing at all.
I saw on the website, but out of curiosity, how long does it take to, I don't know, get a certification or do the course? And do you have to like study for it? I know it's a kind of interesting thing, but I'm pretty sure that anyone who hears that, you don't really get the chance to speak with someone who actually went through
You should study for it more than I did, clearly, because I just barely slid through. There are actually 3 levels, and so at all of them, you have to know kind of the basics of how cheese are made and, like, all the different sources, but at the lowest level, which is all I have at the moment, you have to know, like, 30 different specific cheeses inside and out, like,
it.
where they
Wow.
came from, what they're made from, how they're aged, all of that, and that was hard. The other 2 levels are 100 cheeses and 300 cheeses. So,
I don't even know there are so many cheeses, like
yeah,
hundreds.
it might be a retirement project, but
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure when I would ever have time because 30 was pretty hard for me. So I really can't imagine, especially 300. But the 300 level is called a fellowship. And my kids think the Fellowship of the Cheese sounds pretty amazing,
Oh,
being
that
that
it
they're
does.
big Tolkien fans. So maybe someday.
Mhm. But then I have to ask you, what cheese is your favorite?
A Poisses is my absolute favorite.
I'm not
It's
going to
pretty.
pretend I have no idea.
Yeah, you would have to seek it out. It's not super hard to find, but it's one of the kind of smelly French cheeses, but it's pretty amazing. It's very hard to get where I live.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was a really good trivia and something that you don't really find people with such, I don't know, experience or interest. So it was interesting to discuss.
Yeah, it's
And
random.
it brings us actually to what you focus on. A quick note before we continue. One of the things I've realized from hosting this podcast is that I spend a lot of time thinking about the conversations long after they end. That's one of the reasons I started Unproduced, a solo podcast where I share ideas, lessons, observations, and questions I'm still figuring out myself. If you'd like to check it out, you'll find the link in the description. Now, back to the episode. And before we discuss it in more detail, was there like a specific moment that led you to focus on this or on this niche? If I'm not mistaken, it was a situation with your daughter. Or for the audience who don't know, can you please tell us how it started? Basically, your focus on this area.
Yeah, yeah. I trace back my work to an experience I had with my kid. So both of my daughters are neurodivergent, and my oldest has dyslexia and dyscalculia. And I was homeschooling both of them because I live in a rural area and the school here really couldn't do for them what they needed to do. And so my oldest, we had her evaluated and she was, behind on all kinds of measures, behind on math. She couldn't really spell. She had what they call slow processing. So it takes her just longer to do things than the average person. And, being the type A parent that I am, I kind of pushed and pushed and pushed until I made her cry. I kept thinking that, she wouldn't succeed in life altogether unless she somehow managed to meet 6th grade standards or whatever they were for that year. And I just finally, once she kind of broke down, I realized that, like, whose standards are these? Like, I started to question the standards, like behind, what is she behind? Is she behind compared to what? You could argue that any person is exactly where they belong at any given time, especially a child. And she was kind of being pushed to meet standards that had nothing to do with her strengths, who she was as a person. And so I started to kind of question that line and kind of reformed how we educated my daughter. She is very successful by all measures now. She actually spoke at Oxford at the dyslexia conference.
Well,
She right now is an ambassador for the US government in Germany. So she, over time has been very successful. She will go to college, but probably, a few years later than most kids. But I don't ultimately in the long run, I don't see how that would matter. But just questioning those standards is something that I've started to do again and again. So I just see it with all kinds of people. Like we're measuring ourselves up against lines that we never really wanted. They were either given to us by our parents or social media or school or whatever, and this idea, people always feel like they're behind because there's this hustle culture and there's this you got to move fast and these ideas that keep getting perpetuated online are doing people some harm. People are feeling like a failure. They give up too easily. They don't understand that a lot of things take longer to build than you're being told on Instagram. Those, I made $1 million in 30 days, formulas are usually lies, or it's like the 1 in a million person who actually pulled it off. So I feel like I'm a bit of the countercultural message. So I use that when I work with founders as well as students that I work with, because I think, questioning those lines and understanding what we're really trying to get at in the long run is something that people don't always stop and take the time to do.
I only agree with what you said because I also feel like that, especially now with social media, when you see people mostly sharing just the highs and the wins and the successes, but you don't see the whole picture. You don't know what's behind it. You don't even know if it's true because it can be made up. You don't know even the context. So I'm glad that there is someone who speaks about this. And I can just say that I wish it was different as well. And although I try to keep that in mind, sometimes, of course, I somehow compare myself to others as well. So for me, it's also a helpful reminder that you never see the whole picture and you don't know the context either of that person or of that situation.
Yeah. And what I've built by all measures has been slow in my business because I just have other things in my life that I have to, I have 2 kids that I homeschool. I have parents that I care for. I kind of live in a rural, isolated area, which makes some things difficult. And so there's, a number of things in my life that I have to choose or I choose above my work. And so I have to accept that I'm going to do it at a different pace than somebody who has a different background, lifestyle,
Yeah.
financial situation, all of that.
It's a great point. And now, for example, as you say that, because first I've been following you for some time, I also done some research before the recording. And when I was, for example, reading about what you do on your website, I thought, wow, she achieved a lot. She does so many things, whether it's the titles or the services you provide. And at the same time, I can see that on LinkedIn, for example, you also share experience from your life or experiences and I don't know, trips and stuff like that. So I thought that you've got it, planned really well. And now you say that also you need to prioritize, do sacrifices. So again, for people from the outside who don't know what's the whole picture, they might think one thing, but they don't see what is it like actually. So it was a great point.
Yeah. And I do feel some of the success stories that people are seeing online, you're not seeing things that are behind the scenes as well that are advantages. People who have, a wealthy parent, or there's all kinds of advantages that people are not necessarily being open about in their social media feeds either. And then, someone else is looking at them saying, why can't I be like them? And it's because, you're just coming from a different set of circumstances, right? And
Yeah. And also as you approach this coaching work from such angle or from such a perspective, to me it's something that I haven't really seen on LinkedIn, or maybe it's there, I just haven't noticed, or I don't remember, so I find it unique. So can you be maybe a bit more specific, like how you approach work with people from this type of perspective? Because as I said, I find it unique. You've got a lot of people as a coaches or people working with others, but when it's different, when it's something that I feel like can deliver some value, I'm curious to find out more if you can share more.
yeah. Often what I walk people through, of course, is, we start with, what are your goals and where you're headed. But before we go into building a plan, we question those goals, right? Like, where did they come from? are they yours? Are they actually something, do those goals, fit your life? Again, depending on what your background life circumstances are, like you need to fit them. And sadly, as a loving parent, more often than not, people's goals are coming often from their parents and not from them. So
Yeah,
that's a
that's
big piece of it. A lot of it is coming, from social media and pressure from, peers and social media. So I take a lot of time of walking people through, what is their ultimate goal? I have to make 7 figures by 35 or whatever, just these random lines that I think everybody has. Or 20K months seems to be something that I keep hearing about constantly online. So, just questioning those standards, if that's really necessary. Like, I mean, you can't work to a goal until you clarify what it is. So I usually walk people back through that. One of the other things I tend to do with a lot of founders is narrow their tech stack, because everybody, again, it's sometimes the influence of being online. You always want to try the new thing, and you lose a lot of time learning the new technique, the new this, the new that. The last person I worked with was trying to build this very complicated sales funnel. And, my background is in sales, when, honestly, sending some emails would have been easier and just gotten it done. Like, I just feel like people don't understand that
yeah,
I was in the community years ago that when we were opening new businesses and they were like, next week, email 100 people that you know, and just tell them like, hey, I have this new business and this is what I'm doing now. And so like, people from high school and people from like, you find 100 people, and you just send them an email to catch up, basically, which
Mhm.
was fun because I got to catch up with friends, but also just by putting the information out there to 100 people, there were people that were like, oh, I need that, or I have a friend who needs that, or, that brought me business.
Yeah.
And everybody, I feel like people don't want to, first of all, just talk to people. It's much easier to sit behind your computer at home or in the cafe, or, have that remote solopreneur life that everyone kind of loves to want to have. But, you don't need to build a complicated funnel. You don't need an AI automation. You don't need
Mm.
I mean, honestly, 100 emails will actually usually get you more business. And that same person as well, I convinced them just to put a post on LinkedIn that said, hey, I have a few spots for new clients. And they got new clients from one LinkedIn post, right? Instead of building a complicated, buying 3 products. And so I usually walk people back through a lot of that and simplify their processes. Another thing that I find that a lot of people do is they will overbuild something without knowing that the market wants it, right? They'll build the
Oh,
perfect course and make all the videos and do all, and they haven't validated yet. They don't know
mhm.
that somebody's actually going to buy that product. And part of it is, imposter syndrome and fear, and keeping them from actually going out there. They, again, want to stay behind their computer in their bedroom like I am right now, and instead of going out and talking to people and making sure that's something that people actually want. And so a lot of that, so I narrow people's tech stack. I help them. I start introducing human first interactions, because I think that's a piece that's missing. But also in the day of an age of AI, it's something that will differentiate you. Sometimes going to that meet and greet or that conference and actually having conversations with people, that will usually give more value to you than trying to reach out in the DMs. I mean, people struggle even just to DM, which is usually where most sales happen on LinkedIn, right? But again, that's still a human to human interaction. Hopefully you're not
Yeah,
automating
no,
what
yeah.
you do, but
There are some people, but I
yeah.
understand. But understand that at the same time, it's kind of a tough one when you receive. I'm sure you receive it too, like a lot of terrible DMs and pitches like all the time, and then you are like, okay, I don't want to be another person who does this. Everyone does that. I don't want to be like it. So I understand that it's challenging, but I guess then it's probably a point to speak with the right person, such as you,
Mhm.
to make more quality DM or to prepare a bit better or do some kind of research to reach to the right person. So
Mhm.
yes, I think that's a challenging, but at the same time, if there is someone right to help you with that, like you, that's the
Mhm.
right approach.
Yeah, yeah. And I get a lot of inbound from LinkedIn, and I have over time. I've been very lucky. Some of it's because I had a personal network in the first place, right? People that I just knew. But the other piece was honestly DMs. And I'm in a community. I'm sure you hear it on here with Yasmin Alich. I'm in his link up community. And there was a challenge last July that we had to send 3 DMs a day. And I got a decent amount of business from it. It forced me to do it because I didn't want to, but it was a challenge, so I did. But I have to admit that I did get a decent amount of business just from forcing myself to send 3 DMs a day to people.
Yeah, that's a good point because even when I receive those DMs, when there is one that is somehow customized, maybe creative, unique, and different, yes, it's DM, it's a pitch, but at the same time, you can see that the person made effort. It maybe, I don't know, made me smile or left impression that that person actually did the homework. So I don't want to say that I'm against DMs, but if actually the person does the homework, why not just do it? Because others do
Yeah.
it as well, so do it.
It's hard to do well. I still hand type everyone, right? Like, I think I mean, when everybody's trying to automate everything, and I'm sure, if you send out 1,000 automated DMs, you're going to get some return rate, but I think you're wasting your resources by doing that. Just talking to people like they're human makes a big difference.
And also, it makes a big difference. For example, if you texted me and then I look at your profile, I see not only like properly developed profile. By the way, you did a great rebrand. I remember when I was
Oh,
doing the research before, I saw a different profile picture and different profile, like a design, and now I saw new one. I was like, wow, I don't remember this. So it looks really nice. It just
thank you. I just did
comes.
it yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I have a friend, Ubaid, who's a designer, and he does amazing work. And I feel like my whole life just got upgraded because of it.
I thought it was maybe is it coincidence for 10K celebration or was it just
It is pure coincidence. In fact, I reached out to Ubaid last December, and it took me this long to get him the information he needed to build that.
okay, okay.
Pure
But
coincidence.
it looks very nice. And I was just about to mention that on top of the profile, I would look at your content as well. And I see that you are posting not only, of course, regularly, but I also like your content because of it's not like a recycled personal branding advice or AI tips or this and that, but actually stuff from your life, something funny, lessons and content like that. So my advice, like for the people, it really makes a difference because the content is like it shows what you do. It's something that differentiates you, and it really I think is worth it to put it out there.
That's awesome. Thank you. I have been working on my writing on LinkedIn for 2 years at this point, and I'm pretty happy with where I've landed so far. Yeah.
Yeah, people make sure to check it out. And speaking of LinkedIn, Angela, do you remember the moment when you actually started on the platform?
Yes, yes. So I worked sales for quite some time for a homeschool curriculum company, and I up and quit that job. And so I was left in a position of figuring out what to do. And I started tutoring students. So my daughter, who's dyslexic, I had learned the Barton method. I'd become a literacy specialist so that I could tutor her. And so because I had that training, I then offered it to other students. And I actually still, at this time, I'm tutoring 5 students kind of in the background of my business, teaching dyslexic students how to read and spell. So I first came to LinkedIn because I was building a tutoring business and I was in a community of people that were building tutoring businesses together. And social media is where you market your business. And so I was the only one of that community that decided to kind of go all in on LinkedIn, which was funny because Instagram's where most of the parents were. If you wanted to find students, that was where most people went. I chose LinkedIn for a few reasons. Instagram, the life of a post is really short, and I didn't want social media to take over my life. I knew that I could do LinkedIn 3 times a week and still get pretty good traction. People tend to be a little more professional on LinkedIn, and some of the vitriol that you see on other social medias isn't as bad on LinkedIn. So I joined it because it was a professional thing. But that was where I started building, and it kind of went from there. It was February of 2024. So
Mhm.
I've been a little past 2 years at this point.
How did you then find the beginnings there? Was it trial and error? Did you have some kind of strategy?
I was terrible at it, like anyone is when they do something new, right? I leave all my old posts there on purpose because, I think it's dishonest to kind of cover it up.
And it will be nice in the future to look back and just look at the progress and smile.
Yeah. Well, and some of it too is so that other people can, right? People see that, here I have 10,000 followers. I now have a very swanky looking profile. They should be able to go back and see, I was posting AI, what I'd call AI slop at this point. And, 2 years ago, AI was worse than it even is now. So it probably is really bad. And a lot of content that, advice content, which is really, of course, with AI, anybody can find information any day, anywhere. And so there's no real value in what you're
Mhm.
putting out there. I was putting out information about dyslexia and things, but again, there was not a lot of me in the content, which is something that I really try to do now, as you probably know from looking at my content. I try to make sure that every post, like when I get to the end, if anyone could have written that post, then it's not done, right? It should have enough in there about me and who I am as a person that nobody else could have written that content. So
Yeah.
I can still write, information about dyslexia, but I tie it to my daughter, or I tie it to my tutoring, or I tie it to a student that I was working with, right? So I always try to put it through my lens. And so, yeah, I mean, if you look back, it's terrible. I actually, as well, like last August, I got like very sick, like almost hospital sick. And I think there's like a week where I used AI, and it's noticeable. Like it is like, I mean, if you were to scroll back, it like that week or 2 weeks, whatever it was, it's bad. But I mean, it is what it is. We're all learning.
Did you even find like people commenting that maybe it doesn't sound like you, or people didn't really notice or didn't care?
Probably I was small enough that back at the beginnings, of course, that nobody was. And I feel like, I mean, some people now will still tell people like this is, this is obviously AI, but most people don't. They just ignore you, right? It's just boring. They keep scrolling. It's something that you could get anywhere. So I do try. I'm no genius at hooks still. I have, friends who are way better. I think even like Victoria Michaels was on your podcast as well. She is like the master
The
of the
most
hook.
expensive
Opinion.
thing goes right
That
there.
is her. Yeah, she is like the master of the hook. I should use her help more than I do. So I'm still weak at that, but I have fun with it too. I mean, I think on the weekends I have this like 50 by 50 challenge.
I was
So I,
going to ask you, it's such a great idea. How did you get that idea? It's so cool.
yeah, because sometimes you get on LinkedIn and you're tired of it, right? And there is a lot of AI, and there is a lot of everybody's telling everybody the same thing, or I'm
Yeah.
so tired of seeing people's morning routines, and it gets old after a while. It gets stale. And so for my 50th year, so in October I turned 50, I wanted to try 50 new things within the year. And I post these on the weekends because they're fun. And I'm trying to do 50 new things by the time I turn 50. And so but one of the biggest compliments I ever received is a couple weeks ago, a friend read it and said she felt like she was sitting there just talking to me, because the voice that I use, because of course it's just a little bit snarky
Mhm.
and a little, and she's like, it sounds, again, it's exactly as if she were sitting in a room with me hearing the story, right? It's fun for me, but it also helps me keep going because I'm just doing something fun on the side as well, right? It doesn't all feel like work on there.
Yeah, and exactly, I'm that person who actually enjoys and appreciates this type of content. Because when I see constantly, I know it's probably maybe my fault, don't follow those people, but branding advice and latest cloth tips, there is actually post when Angela visited the reindeer farm and shared something funny. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I want to see something different. And it's also great tips like, for me, maybe I didn't know there is such a place, or it reminds me there is also life out there. So go and explore too. So I think it's creative, unique, and it's fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because these posts have been so much fun for me that once I turn 50, there's going to be like a vacuum. Like, what do I do with the next year?
What are some so far? What you've done? What are some of your favorite ones?
I can tell you one of the favorite ones that I wrote was about being in a driverless car. That I did not want to do it. I did not want to do it, but I was at a conference and my friends talked me into it. And I wanted to go out to dinner with my friends. And that was, in fact, what's funny is the two people I went with are both introverts, and they wanted to go back to the hotel room at the end of the conference. And I wanted to go out and do fun stuff. And so the
Mhm.
negotiation was that they would come out with me that night if I would go in the driverless car. And I literally sent my daughter a text, which I screenshot on the photo, that said, I'm getting a Waymo. I was like, I've always loved you. That's what I texted to my daughter. So that was one of the fun ones. I went on a gator ride. You can get on an airboat down by New Orleans, and they take you through the bayou and you feed alligators. That was pretty nuts. The guy, in fact, that had our boat, like the guy that controlled the boat, he put a marshmallow in his teeth, and the gator like pulled it out of his mouth.
Oh wow! Oh my god! That
So yeah,
that's
there's been
brave.
some crazy,
Mhm.
crazy adventures. some more so than others. A lot of the new things are foods because I just like trying new foods. But yeah, there's been a few really wild ones.
Do you plan it by yourself, or do you somehow go, I don't know, with the flow, or how do you approach what you're going to do?
Most of the time they just come naturally, like, because I'm just that kind of person. If I go on a trip, I want to do all the things. And so every time I go out of town, I end up kind of getting a cadre of things for it that help fill the coffers for my 50, which is funny too, because you'll, like, in the winter was when I slowed down because I don't travel as much in the winter because of where I live in the mountains. It's hard to get in and out of here. But every time I've gone on a trip, I've gotten 3 or 4 different things when I go out of town.
It reminds me of the German village that you visited. And it made me curious. I thought, why would I build a German village in the US? And I was reading about it. I was like, wow, because it reminded me of my first currywurst as well. When I had it.
Yeah,
So it was really interesting.
it is so strange that, and what's even more strange about it is that a lot of places in America, because people from a region settled there, it has culturally some things, right? Like Boise is a city close to me, and a lot of people from Basque country, like, settled in Boise. So they have like a Basque area, but that makes sense because people came. But this town in Washington, it was purely a marketing decision. There was nobody there. Like, there wasn't like a huge group of people with German heritage that just ended up in Leavenworth. It was
Yeah.
like some guy's idea. And somehow he convinced the whole town to go in on it because and like literally every house, every shop, every sign, everything is like has German and is stylized. It's so strange. And it's also kind of in an isolated location in the middle of the mountains of Washington.
I was having a look at the map and I thought, wow, it's like middle of nowhere. I wouldn't expect it there, which was interesting.
That is, yeah. I mean, they do have mountains that kind of look,
Like
a little bit
Alps.
like Bavaria. So I guess, I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of the mystique. But it's a very wild. And the thing that was so strange there is that there were so many tourists from other countries that literally came to America to see fake Germany, which is so odd.
But if I was German, I would genuinely be curious to see that, like what it looks like, my country in a different state. Like it just so I find it so interesting or so bizarre that I would be curious.
The world is a funny, funny place.
I hope it at least teases people and makes them curious to check out your content and follow you, because I'm also curious to see what's coming with the next ones. And Angela, one of my kind of regular questions is if you got any advice for people that want to grow on LinkedIn, because I don't want to say viral, but let's be honest, I'm sure you also get these DMs. So Angela, how to grow followers, this and that. So what will be your advice?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are people who have grown faster than me, and there's certainly people who have a lot more followers than I do. My method has honestly been to let most of my followers come to me organically. So I don't know if it's 50 or 100 people that you can, click connect with every week. And I think there's people on there that are going in and clickety, 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 right? And trying to just bring people in. There is a
Quantity over
metric.
quality.
Yeah. Well, they're just because, I understand, especially because I actually got to 10K this week, people take you more seriously if you have a higher follower number. So everybody's doing whatever they can to just get that number up. And I stopped playing that game. People come to me organically. And then what happens for me is, they do use what's called an engagement rate. So depending on how many impressions you have, how many people either like or comment on your post. So you can look at those figures, but it also is part of the algorithm of LinkedIn, right? Like my post from yesterday about hitting 10,000 followers has a freaky, weird 33% engagement rate. So on LinkedIn, they tell you 2% is good. 5% is you're like a rock star. And part of it is because they didn't show the post to very many people. And so everybody that they showed it, most of the people they showed it to actually did something with it. And that's an unusual day. But my average engagement is between 8 and 9%. And that's actually very, very high for LinkedIn. But it's because my followers are literally my followers. They're not just people that I, just tried to get to show up, right? I didn't go onto that network page and just start clicking connect so that I could get my numbers up. And so there were people that legitimately came to me. And I mean, again, this is the same idea as what I do in business, this idea of, slow measured growth, right? Like I have an engaged audience because I allowed it to come to me at normal speed. And so whether people are going to do that or not is up to them. But I do think that it gives me a lot more value on LinkedIn. And I think in the long run, and it is also why when I was down, I think I made my first, dollar off of LinkedIn at somewhere like between 3,000 and 4,000 followers. Like I didn't
Yeah.
have as many as I do now, but because they were legitimate people that I knew or had maybe had a convo with in the DMs or people that had just come to me because of my content, they were all people that had chosen to engage with me, right? And so being able to monetize that is a lot easier than if you have 100,000 people that, you've gotten some other way. So, I mean, that's part of what I've done. So, I mean, honestly, there's a few things that I think that are magical. Consistency. I have posted at least 3 times a week for 2 years. And a lot of people, don't do that. And I posted when I didn't like to post. I just kept doing it. I kind of made a promise to myself and just did it. That consistency makes a difference. Leaning into who you are makes a difference. That's what makes you stand out, especially now in the feed. Because again, AI can make everybody looks the same. I also think there's a growing number of people like just getting on LinkedIn to try to make money because they've been told that's what you do, right? Like that's where you can make money. And so there's a growing number of people there that are kind of playing the same game. And so I think anything you can do to make yourself stand out. There's one person in particular that I really love on LinkedIn. Her name's Magali DeRoe. I'm probably butchering her name, but she just showed up and grew really fast, but it was because her content stands out. It's just different. She's snarky and smart and, she'll write a whole post about why a dog on the street that took her sandwich is better at, marketing than most people on LinkedIn, right? Like just wild things. But because of it, it's fun, it's interesting, and
Mhm.
people want to read it, right? So there are ways to build fast, but honestly, consistency is always the winning game, right? And I've worked on my writing. As I said, it was terrible 2 years ago. I've actually worked on the craft of, trying to write a better DM, trying to write a better post and, improving a little bit every day. And ultimately it pays off.
Those were great points. I like to emphasize that sometimes I think, or I feel like that people think that consistency means every day, but as you really well said, even 3 times per week is a consistency. It doesn't matter that one person is posting daily, I don't know, 5 times a week, 7 times a week, as long as you keep going for a long term and keep showing up, even 2 times per week, remember that it's still consistency. That was a great point.
Yeah, LinkedIn is one of the few things, and also one of the reasons I came to it. One of the few social medias where you really can, just post 3 times and get some traction off it, right? And also the posts live longer and longer in there now, which is also kind of brilliant. Sometimes a post from 2 weeks ago will suddenly start getting more impressions, like it'll just pop off like much later. They used to live, easily for 2 days when I got on 2 years ago, but now sometimes they can live for weeks, and that's also pretty awesome.
That is true. I agree. And another great point with you need to be yourself and stand out because now, of course, AI and how it's progressing, you see more and more content and that looks just to me it feels kind of soulless because it's like the content that sometimes feel like people don't even put any effort into it. And I think that often people ask like how to stand out, be different, but I think they forget that actually it's you, that it's like your competitive advantage and something that is unique to you. So find it and embrace it and don't outsource it to AI or to someone else. So that was a great point. And you mentioned Magali. I spoke with her and she said a great example, I think was a post about pigeon and cigarette, something like that, like completely random,
Yes.
but it was so funny.
Yeah. She is so funny. And that, I mean, again, that just brought people to her really fast.
Mhm. Yeah, so that was just a great point. And if there are like people listening now and maybe wondering, oh, it's easy for you to say stand out, be unique, be different. So if there is someone actually thinking this, what will be your maybe advice how to find that unique edge of that person who's got these questions?
Yeah. It is funny that this comes up a lot, especially like in the community I'm in. I mean, every person as an individual that's why if you lean into what things that are uniquely you, it's something that AI can't create, right? And so I feel like also some of the younger people, don't have like my breadth of, experience, right? They're not 50 and they don't have a network and they haven't worked in sales and the things that I have that I can offer professionally. But I mean, I talk about my watercoloring, I talk about,
Oh yeah, I
there's,
saw that you like to do it over the weekend. Sorry to
yeah,
interrupt.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, everybody has a thing, right, that they're into. I mean, they could be a Tolkien nerd. They could be into gaming. There's something. You can be into reading books. You could be into your cat. Like I have a friend who's really weirdly obsessed with her cat. Like
Wait,
there's, I mean,
is it Dan? Maybe on LinkedIn? Danielle?
oh, his cats are super cute. It's not him, but I do like,
Okay.
yeah, Daniele also
But I
puts his
love
cat.
cats as well. I don't want to laugh at anyone. I love them too. I just jealous that I don't have one.
Yeah, but I mean, those are the things that I mean, people like that because it's what makes you look like a human, right? And in some ways, when I started doing coaching, which is fairly new to me, like in 2026 is when I formally started doing executive coaching, I found that the people that were coming to me were all neurodivergent, and it wasn't really my intention to just like be a coach for neurodivergent people, but because of my content, because I tell people that I have ADHD, because I tell people about raising my children with their neurodivergencies, right? And so people were just attracted to me because of the pieces that I show on LinkedIn that are literally just about me, right?
Yep.
So I mean, I could coach any business owner, but the people who are coming to me are either neurodivergent or they have a product or a service that is for neurodivergent individuals because that's something I talk about regularly. So it's
Mhm.
also how you attract people into your circles that you can get on with in some ways, right? Like it's more fun for me to work with people who are neurodivergent actually, which because I am as well. So, I mean, I don't know who says this, but your vibe attracts your tribe, right? So, just putting out there who you are as a person, you're going to find other people. There are other people out there who like gaming. There are other people out there who like watercoloring. There are other people out there who love to read, right? And so there's millions of people out there. You don't have to be everything to everyone. You still have
Yeah,
plenty, there's still plenty of people to have business, and they get attracted to you by you showing them who you are as a person.
I agree, and I like it. And you never know if someone might be afraid of sharing that. But if you're actually the person who starts talking about it, there might be others who just maybe have been hiding it or they don't want to share it, and now they see you, and you become that one person that will be automatically associated with that. Plus,
Yeah.
since it's something that you enjoy, it just makes it much easier to talk about it and to share it and more natural. So I think that was a
Hmm.
great piece of advice.
Yeah. There was a guy on LinkedIn who posted a whole thing about how much he dislikes cheese. And there were so many comments under his thing that said, I hope Angela doesn't see this. I hope Angela doesn't see this. Like there were like 10 to 20 people underneath his post that like mentioned me by name underneath his posts.
Was there
So I mean,
some kind of fight in the comments afterwards?
no, it was very funny. But I mean, people do know that about me now, right? And
Yeah,
it's kind of an interesting piece of who I am as a person, right?
I think so. I find it funny. It was you could say I was curious to discover more at the start of this conversation, so it was really fun. And Angela, I just need to be aware of time. It flew so quickly. But what are some of your hobbies or things that you like to do in your free time?
Free time. So I live in the mountains, so I do like to hike, and I have a dog that I like to drag with me.
What's his or her name?
Her name is Maggie. She's actually a very small dog. She's not like a hiking kind of dog, which is why I mean drag. But she does, once we get up into the mountains, she's pretty happy because she gets to wander free. So I do a lot of hiking. Of course, I watercolor. Most of my time I just spend with my family. I have a garden in the backyard. I actually grow about 40% of my family's food in the backyard, which is a random fact I think people probably don't know about me. So I grow a lot of our food and I make a lot of fresh food. And that's most of what my time is cooking and spending time with my family.
It's actually a really nice, well spent time, and living by the mountains must be beautiful too.
It's a good life. I can't complain.
I'm happy to hear that. Do you, Angela, read books in your free time? And if so, or if you've got any recommendations?
I do. I am actually in a book club that I started with a bunch of businesswomen. We meet every Monday, which is really nice to kind of work through stuff with other people. Part of it was because I have friends who are all over and I just miss seeing them. So now I get to see them once a week and that helps. But also kind of working through some things with them. It has been really helpful. The book that we started the book club with was a book called Designing Your Life, which was put out by a couple of professors from Stanford, and it has kind of been foundational in what I've built over the last couple of years. It really made a huge difference for me and my trajectory. Just working through some of the questions and the problems clarified for me as well, kind of where I was going and where I wanted to be. And working through that with other people was particularly useful because it's kind of formatted so that you have a chapter and then homework and a chapter and homework. So it works really well in a group. And then we would discuss, kind of what had come out of it, like at the end of each week. And so it was also helpful to have other sets of eyes and other, businesswomen who are kind of working through the same questions together. So that is a book that I really love. I read a lot of nonfiction. I'm very obsessed with learning and getting better at what I do. My friends make fun of me because I don't read fiction. I'm always reading nonfiction. I'm trying to think through some of the ones that I've read recently that have been good. Buy Back Your Time, Dan Martell is a really good one. A Company of One. I don't know who wrote it, but that book.
I think that's finally one that I recognize. I don't know the author, but I feel like that I've come across this one too.
Yeah. There was something in that book. There was a guy who knew how much money he needed to live for the year. And when he reached it, he would just stop working. And so like that particular year, it was August, and he just stopped working for the rest of the year. And that idea kind of broke my brain, but it has just stayed there because it started to also introduce the idea. And it's something that these women and I talk about a lot, though, like how much is enough? Like, because especially, in America, and maybe elsewhere, but it's just like you're being successful, so you have to scale. Like that's the next step, right? Like if you can get 3 clients to do this, why not 300? And why not, like there's always this idea of more, right? And so, we talk a lot about what is enough. And that concept in that book really, really stuck out to me, is just deciding really how much is enough and then stopping, right? There's other things that I can do with my time and my life and people that are important to me with those hours. I don't need to give them all to scaling my business, right? So that was a really good one too.
It's a great point because I sometimes think about it as well, because you are chasing some kind of goal, and then when you achieve it, you are chasing another goal, and then it becomes never ending chase. So I try to remind myself actually to enjoy the journey, because if it's fun, I know it sounds maybe a bit cliche or cheesy that, enjoy the journey, don't focus on the result, but as I say, it may become never ending chase. And what you said, sometimes I feel like as well. So it's a great reminder for me too.
Yeah. I'm not very good at celebrating when I reach endpoints. So that's also a piece that I need to learn myself.
But those were previous books, great recommendations. I will check them out. Can you then, Angela, please summarize where people can find you, follow you, and promote any of your services?
Yeah. Everything that I have can be found on LinkedIn. So, my writing, my newsletter, advisory work, as well as, speaking engagements. I also have a website that is just about there. It is just my name, angelamariediantonio.com. So you can either find me on LinkedIn or you can find me in there, either place.
And check out Updated LinkedIn. You will like it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Then, Angela, have you got like any goals or anything that you'd be willing to share with us, with the audience, to be excited about, whether it's in upcoming weeks, months, or anytime?
Yeah. So I think I have 3 big things that I'm building towards. I would like to do more speaking because I love it more than anything. Traveling, meeting new people, it's the best. I am working on a book. It will probably be 2027 before it comes out. And then I have this dream scenario where I start having in-person events for like women in leadership, where we get together in cool places and learn together and make some memories and just have some IRL, in real life interactions. And that's kind of my dream. And I am already starting to set up ideas of doing a starter version next June of 2027. So those are kind of my
Ooh.
three big long-term goals.
It sounds exciting, and fingers crossed if it works out. And it might be a bit early, but would you be willing to tell us slightly a bit about the book, like a little teaser or just to say a bit? Or if it's not too early, of course, or if you don't want to say any spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slowly building it, just like everything I've ever built, and it's around this idea called calm ambition. So basically, that you can grow quickly without, without urgency, without fear. And so it walks through some of the methods that I use with my coaching clients, ways in which to, walk through your goals, ways in which to reset your day, finding the smallest measurement of success that you can use on a day-to-day basis. Some of that at questioning the lines, where they came from, whether they're yours to even keep. Talking about using your strengths instead of everybody always feels like they're behind or they're missing something, but everybody has something that they have that they can build with. So those are some of the ideas behind it. I have a newsletter where I'm working through some of these things. So I'm kind of working through it in real time in my newsletter and getting feedback from people who are, signed on to my newsletter, which has been kind of an amazing process. Is just having some friends and people in there that are giving me feedback on what I'm putting out and helping me shape what the book will become.
Yeah. I'll be looking forward to in the future when I'm somewhere at the airport, and I always check the bookstores. I will be excited when I see yours, and I will remember this discussion. So it sounds great, like such ambitions. I like it. And of course, I hope it works out. So happy to hear that. And then, Angela, very last question. Is there anything I should have asked you and did not, or anything you would like to share the audience with before we finish?
Oh, I feel like you did a really good job. We talked a bunch of random personal stuff, which is always fun for people to learn about. And we also covered the basis of my business. So I feel pretty good. Do a good job.
I'm happy to hear that, because there are so many interesting things. And as I said, I like the content that you share on LinkedIn. So it made me curious about a lot of stuff. So I just wanted to discuss it. And I felt like, oh my God, time goes so quickly and there is still so much to discuss. But I genuinely enjoyed it. So, of course, I want to say a huge thank you. We'll be following and supporting. Keep up doing the great work, because not only your mission, what you do, but I also like your positivity, mindset, and reminder to enjoy life. So thank you very much for your time.
That's awesome. Thank you for having me. This is fun.
Thanks for listening to Produced by with Tomen. Check the show notes for all the links, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and share your feedback. Speak soon.